Ok, bueno. Muy buenos días a todas y todos al segundo día de esta clase magistral sobre Ciencia Ciudadana, organizada por LIBER, la Asociación de Bibliotecas de Investigación Europeas, y la Biblioteca Hernán Santa Cruz de la CEPAL. Vamos a dar algunos avisos antes de comenzar. Respecto de los subtítulos, por favor activarlos en su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el icono que está en la esquina inferior izquierda de su pantalla, un icono que dice CC. En relación a las preguntas, por favor, pueden hacerlas en inglés o español a través del chat. Trataremos de responderlas al final de la sesión y también durante la sesión de cierre al final de la jornada. Y recomendamos que para unirse a Webex a través de la aplicación, lo hagan a través de la aplicación de escritorio, es decir, que la descarguen, si tienen problemas para ver las presentaciones. Si tienen problemas, también estamos transmitiendo por YouTube. En esta primera sesión se presentarán las buenas prácticas en Ciencia Ciudadana. Lynn, por favor.
Good morning and welcome to the second day of the Citizen Science Masterclass organized by LIBER and the ECLAC Library. A bit of housekeeping before we start. The captions you can turn on and select your language by clicking on this little speech bubble icon in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You can ask speakers questions in English or Spanish. Just put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them at the end of the session and in the closing session. For the best and most seamless experience, we recommend joining WebEx via the desktop applications. And if you should have any issues with viewing the presentation or WebEx, we also are streaming this event on YouTube. We'll share the link in the chat as well. And the first session today will present good practices in citizen science. And the presenters are Nell Coleman, a Library Citizen Science Engagement Officer from the University of Edinburgh, Rafael Batz, co-head of Eurofirst, University of Bordeaux, and Dora Kalidigalne, Deputy Director General of the Library and Information Center of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in Budapest. And to properly introduce today's topic and session, I hand over to you, Rafael.
So thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Buenos tardes, I think, but I'm not sure because that's the only thing I can say. And it's just because I've seen that you write it on the chat. So it's a bit of a trick from my part. So I'm very happy and honored on behalf of the Citizen Science Working Group of LIBER to share this moment with you. We are very pleased to take part to these 3 days of lectures and discussion about citizen science. And I will not say a lot about the general topic, because the 3 presentations will largely come on this topic. And just to explain what we are going to talk, Nell Coleman, Dora Kalidigalne, and myself, Rafael Batz, will present you 3 ways to think about implementation of citizen science in universities, with a highlight, of course, on the role of academic and research libraries. So we will have 3 lectures. We are supposed to begin with Nell, but I think that Nell has a computer issue. So I don't know if finally you succeed to join us, Nell.
I think he or she, I don't know, has a problem, still has a problem.
So I propose you as in the same time my lecture and an introduction to the topic. I will begin and I give the mic to myself, if you allow me that. I'm Rafael Batz. I'm in charge of a unit, training, teaching and research unit in France named Europeas. It's about scholarly communication and information science. and I'm engaged in the LIBER Citizen Science Working Group since 2 or 3 years now, I think. My presentation, and I will share the documents. One very short minute. Okay, and I think now it's working. I think it's okay. Yeah, all right, thank you. And I will present you an overview of the role that can library take in the university to support or to engage citizen science in the university. So just a short introduction to say that participatory practices, which is not citizen science, participatory practices in library has a long history in territorial libraries, in municipal library, public library, with a turning point starting in 2010 with the development, of third-part libraries and the idea that the library can have a strong role on social questions and creating links between society and citizens and the institution. So I think that's the same in your country, the development of, for example, the shared acquisition, collective acquisition of documentation, of collections, for example, or thinking about the organization of space into the library with the public and things like that. But that was very slow for university libraries. It was more difficult for them to organize the same kind of participation in their services and collection. It can have many reasons for that. One of the reasons is the academic library and the university library were very, very occupied with the question of, very busy with the questions of open science and open access. And there was this main issues of opening the collection, making researcher aware of the benefits of this opening and the tools and building the infrastructure. And this is also a political question. This is also a question of linking society with science and science with society. But the activities that was made in municipal library or public library were on a different form, where citizens were required to give their opinion, their time, and things like that. And that was not the same process to opening the institution to the society, but that was both same things in question of opening to society. Okay. Since a few years now, we have a new interest for citizen science or participatory science or participatory research. We could have a long discussion about the semantic, but what we have seen now, we have seen a strong mobilization of university libraries. And here in Europe, we can see that the Citizen Science Working Group of LIBER began in 2019. It means that there was before some colleagues interested with this question, and really the momentum where librarians understood their own role and assumed their own role was really at this moment from 2019 and 2020. And it's true that the pandemic helped us a lot to think about how to reinforce this relation, science and society I was speaking about before. So we had a context where the injunction to strengthen relation between society and science were more and more important. And then university libraries, academic libraries began to mobilize their teams, mobilize their organization to begin to work on that. And what is beautiful is they a lot of them made partnership with local library, public libraries, and engage a structuring dialogue on this question. So we can say that now libraries and participation, it's not just about participation in public library, but it's participation in all libraries. The question is, are we alone to know that? Do the researchers know that? Know that role we have? Do know that interest we have? And what does it mean to mobilize ourselves for citizen science? So last year, we made an exploratory survey about citizen science projects. It was in the context of the citizen science working group of LIBER, but it was conducted with my colleague Till Maklar from Slovenia and myself from France. So the topic was the impact of citizen science projects, with a important focus on the role of libraries for these projects. So it was really exploratory. We didn't want to have an extensive or exhaustive view on the citizen science project. It was really to reach some project and to see the highlights of this question. So we have some answer from 4 European countries that you can see on the map, and 16 answer. And we asked them, did you work with the library during your project? And 56% say, yeah. So we were very surprised, but in fact, all of these citizen science projects we contact them via the library. Okay, we ask the library, do you know citizen science project? Yeah, can I ask them to answer our survey? So that's why we have so many research citizen science project leader who say, yeah, I work with the library. But the other one, they say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I haven't never thought about working with the library. And this 76% was mainly projects from Denmark and from Slovenia. It's two projects, two countries where in Denmark, in the University of South Denmark, they really develop in the library, with the library, service to engage citizen science project. And in Slovenia, it's the University of Ljubljana, they created at the library a catalog to give access to the citizen science project. So in the both case, we see that these libraries have a very important role for citizen science project. They are first step to develop citizen science project, to reach out the public, or they are a communication step to also reach out the public. So, and in the other countries where there was maybe more implementation of the library into the structure of the development of citizen science, where libraries are less evident or obvious service for the development of citizen science project, the project leader does not work with the library. So we ask them why, why they work with or why they do not work with. So when we ask them, why do you work with them? The partnership elements are because of the collections. So they have collection and I work on collection, or because we want to reach out the people. So for dissemination and fighting participants, so communication, catalogs, organization of events, etc., etc. Strangely, no one answered with saying, I count on the library to disseminate the results of our research. So the dissemination of papers, dissemination of data, etc., etc. So we can say that the library's documentary specificity, the core hard work of the library, the collection, is only seen from one point of view, which is the patrimonial competencies. Okay, so you can see what the colleagues say, the research project leaders say. They preserve letter. We send some bookmarks so they can promote the project. It's good for disseminate information about the project, to propose a field trip, so to collect data with the library, so to create an event, etc. And someone say, we are the public library. So the project was with the public library and they answer. So That was why, but why not? And the main barrier, the main barrier is the knowledge of the role of the library. Some colleagues say, I had no idea I could have been useful. I never thought about that. But now I will consider things differently. Now I will think about library. Okay, I haven't thought about that, but maybe now we. And also say that I don't see the relevance of that kind of collaboration yet, but I'm open to hear about that. And this is very important because these colleagues are not these researchers. They don't see the library like a no way. So they don't say library has nothing to do with citizen science. So no, I will not work with them. No, they say I haven't thought about this, but now I'm open to hear about that. But I have no clue about what a library could do for me in my citizen science project. So it lets us think that we have an important work to do as advocacy. Is it working? Yes, no, I don't know why it stopped. I don't know why.
Somehow.
And now it's okay? Yeah, okay. We also asked them how they consider academic libraries important as partners. So if you had libraries as partner, for what to do? And they say it's for communicate the publication widely. So that's strange because just before we have seen that they don't see these points of dissemination. But when we asked them where the library could be useful, it was mainly for this. So for publication, for dissemination of publication widely, the results, etc. But also, of course, for meeting the participants and reaching out the participants and so on. So we thought in the citizen science working group that we need a bit of advocacy for citizen science in libraries, because obviously it's not very clear for colleagues what they can do with us, and even when they think we are useful. So to help librarians to explain and advocate their role, we designed and presented a poster about the role of academic libraries in citizen science. So we, when I say we, it's Dolores Muemelas from, I made a mistake, sorry, Muemelas from Croatia, Sebastian Arnaker from Austria, and Alex Taouman-Gemine and myself, Raphael Batz, from France. And the four of us created this poster after having some interviews with a colleague like Nell, that is going to speak after me, Marina, Marie, Thomas, Till, David, and their colleagues from Denmark, from Sweden, from Spain, etc., etc. So the poster is based on interviews done with European librarians in charge of citizen science-related projects. And by the way, we won the Best Poster Award at LIBER 2024, and we were very happy. And then we proposed the poster in 9 languages, but not Spanish. So if you want to translate it in Spanish, we will be very happy to propose you the poster in Spanish, and then you can use it as you want. So the poster was about presenting 5 arguments to explain our role to everybody. It can be the institution, it can be the research teams, etc. And I will begin with the first argument, and one precision. The first argument I use is in fact the 5th in the document, in the poster, but I will present that differently from the poster for many reasons. So the first argument is libraries are useful for citizen science because of their role in cultural heritage. And I think that Dora will speak about that also maybe. Citizen science concerns all disciplines, we are agree on that, including the humanities and social science. And a lot of the research projects in citizen science coming from this discipline draws a source from the collection of our institution. It can be libraries, archive, museum, galleries, so GLAM institution. And it's true that libraries have a rich and diverse collection, and we have the material on which build a corpus on which build citizen science projects. And it's also some corpus on which it's easy to engage audience and public and reaching out people, because people have interest for some topics we have on in our collection. An example is the University of Krzyzewski at Krzyzewski, sorry. They have initiated a project entitled Revitalization of the Cultural Heritage, and they collaborate with alumni association, with historians and citizens to collect and transcribe and index the collection and study it. For librarians, I think that these types of projects are mainly about implementing participatory practices in digital humanities. Okay, so that's something that that's why I use it as a first argument, because that's something that it's pretty easy to do, not as a task because it's complex for many reasons, but that's something that we know how to do. That's opening collection, working on collection, making it more accessible, etc. The second thing is about the second argument is about libraries, citizen science, and open science. As I said, the libraries were very, very busy with open science, and citizen science is a part of open science. It's maybe the part that we have not working on the beginning, but now we are working on this part too. It's in the same umbrella that the rest has open access, infrastructure, and citizen science. So why libraries are citizen science is part of open science because it facilitates the production and the circulation of scientific information. And of course, libraries are playing a role to facilitate this implementation of open science policies, as maybe you are working on this topic since a few years ago now. And as libraries work on implementing open science policies in their university, like having roadmap for open science or open access in their or data open data in their university, they now have to think about how to add citizen science in this roadmap. So I will not speak about the University of Edinburgh because Nell is going to speak about that. But the University of Utrecht in Amsterdam has secured fundings, okay, to open a citizen science center in their university. Of course, funding is the first part of everything, unfortunately. So to promote citizen science among research teams. So this is the first step. Also know that in the LIBER Citizen Science, we are working on a guide. It will be our third guide on the topic of citizen science, and it will be totally on the question of how to implement citizen science in the university, and specifically the link with the open science roadmap and so on. And it will be available in July 2025. Something important that depending on national policies, citizen science is really part of open science or part of science and society relation. In some countries, that's the same umbrella. In some other country, like in France, it's very different. So it's not the same person in the Ministry of Research, okay? So sometimes it's a bit difficult for the library to find their way between the both things, all right? But we can see that, in fact, it's really totally dependent of the both concepts, open science and society relations. Third arguments, library, citizen science, and research data. We know that citizen science produce data, of course, like any research project. But we know also that there is a strong attention to the quality of citizen science projects because there is some, it could have been some doubt about the quality, okay, of the data that are produced. And so the data in citizen science projects has to be produced with a strong attention to use and reusability usability and reusability of the data, for any researchers, but also we can say that have to be collected and managed with a high level of integrity, okay? To be sure to not have any confrontation and risk of doubt on the research results. And you know that libraries are supporting researchers in their digital research practices and the dissemination of their work. So I would say naturally, the library have a role to play in training project leaders in the challenge of data management. So data management plan, metadata, data repository, and so on. So it's very important part. It's in fact already in the task of the librarian. So it just had to do it also for citizen science project. For example, in Seville, in university, they have launched at the library, they have launched a research data management service specifically for citizen science project leaders. Or the University of Montpellier in France, they organized a seminar on data collection for citizen science projects, okay? And in France, the Committee of Open Science has published a guide specifically on this question, data issues in citizen science projects, okay? So the actions that are made now can range from training in data management to drafting data management to choice of repository and also the information of the related legal issues. A fourth agreement, reaching out the public. So citizen science fosters confidence in science among citizens. That's one of the objectives. And for that, we need to make the public aware of this kind of project, because we can have the project, but if nobody participates, it's not participatory. So libraries are seen like open and public places where we can promote citizen science projects and encourage citizens to get involved. For example, the Citizen Science Knowledge Center at the University of Southern Denmark provides help to researchers to develop their citizen science project. And they act as a community manager to promote events and to reach participants, and specifically with school students. And another example, at the University of Bordeaux, the library organized an exhibition and with tours, visits, and workshop in partnership with the Citizen Science Project to make it accessible to the students, but also to the general public. So basically, these actions are valorization and mediation on a part, like in Bordeaux, or on other parts, it's more like project support and management, like in Denmark, okay? And a lot of the valorization tasks are also done in public libraries. That's why it's very important to work all together. And the fifth argument, it's about documentation. So citizen science projects produce academic documentation, like papers, data, but also non-academic documentation, like comics, radio program, blogs, etc. So the knowledge that is produced is a bit different that we are used to manage in academic library. But as specialists in the dissemination of knowledge, it seems to me that libraries have a role to play in making this knowledge that is produced, in fact, with the citizens accessible. It's not just to disseminate the scientific knowledge, but it's also to show and to demonstrate and to make visible the role of citizens in this project, okay? And in fact, it's a bit complicated, this question. How do libraries promote the results of citizen science project? Do they do it in their space, like inside the library, corner, citizen science corner to present that, or in their catalogs? And in your catalogs, do you accept a video, for example, done by citizens scientists, etc., etc.? So it asks for us many questions about the relation between citizen science and science communication, and of course, librarians. So how to write science in citizen science project, how to publish science communication in citizen science, and how to give access. And there, the librarians are part of this. And if you know French, you can watch the videos of a study day we have organized on this topic in 2023, and we are working on a book to come in 2025. As I said, it's a very complex question, and it has for us a lot of work on how how to mobilize our core work task to solve this question. And I know that it's a bit complicated, so we can discuss about this in the question. And so to conclude, we have practices to defend if citizen science is to become a permanent feature in the landscape of our university. We have practices to defend because we are already active on this, but we also have practices to question so that the knowledge produced by citizen sciences will be able to reach as many people as possible and it will be truly recognized. So I hope it will, my presentation will have give you some clue about this question. And once again, do not hesitate to contact us if you want to translate the poster in Spanish. So thank you very much. And I forgot to tell you that we will take the question at the end of the presentation. So I don't know if Nell succeed to join us. Thank you very much. So Dora, if you are okay, I will give you the mic. So I'm very pleased to give the mic to Dora Khalidi-Galneh, who's Deputy Director General of the Library and Information Center of the Hungarian Academy of Science in Budapest. And Dora, that's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Just to tell that Nell succeeded. So after the speech of Dora, we will have the speech of Nell. Thank you very much, Nell.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rafael, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to be here with you. And I just, as Rafael was talking about, how the advocacy of citizen science and what the LIBER Citizen Science Working Group has already done for the community of LIBER and for the good of other libraries as well, as all of the materials are absolutely accessible for everyone. I'm going to talk about how we try to advocate citizen science in Hungary. Hungary is a quite small country, especially comparing to France or any countries of South America. We have about 10 million inhabitants. We are in the Central Eastern Europe, and actually it's very important when we talk about the advocacy, the promoting of citizen science, to know a bit about the history of the country as that's it. As it is absolutely different in Hungary and in our Central Eastern region than in Western Europe. Hungary used to belong to the socialist region until 1989, let's say after the Second World War, mainly. So we during the socialist era, we had a kind of political control. So there was it's absolutely different now if we talk about social work or citizens' involvement, because what comes into people's mind is the old form of social work when we were told to do things during our free time, spare time, or weekends. So it is really difficult to advocate something which could seem a kind of work. And also we have to take into consideration that the financial background of the citizens are absolutely different in our countries, in Hungary as well, than in Western Europe. Those people who have the the freedom to spend their time on something different than their job, they usually do not have the values to work for a community. It must be different. They really need a kind of reason to work on. So what we decided in the Association of the Hungarian Librarians, that we have to do a very massive education training, highlight the values of citizen science, how citizen science can change people and can change the community. And absolutely, we have to build on patriotism. So what we decided, okay. Sorry, it's somehow, okay. So what we decided, I just can't turn the page, no, this way, okay. So we decided to do a kind of roadshow. First of all, I would like to show you what we have done already in the country. So you can exactly see how difficult it is to spread citizen science. The first presentation on citizen science was at the National University of Public Affairs. That was in 2019. I just tried to put together all those milestones and highlights when a library is involved in citizen science projects. So as we work on behalf of the Association of Hungarian Librarians, we really want to get the libraries engaged in citizen science projects. So our main aim in the association to show the librarians firstly why it is good for them, and to show them how they can reach out for researchers and for volunteers. So after 2019, of course, the pandemic arrived in 2020, so we had very little time before the pandemic, but it was good because we also had, just some time to sit down. We were not traveling and anything like that. So we put together a monography, a book on open science, of course in Hungarian, our native language. And this book has a chapter on citizen science, which was a really huge step, as we could, as it is open access, it can be found in the repository. We could send over this chapter to the librarians. After the pandemic, we tried to reach out for small small universities like the Toka University, and it was really easy to start to talk about citizen science, what citizen science can bring for, not just for the university, but for the region. It's a very small region, very small university, easy to reach people, easy to reach the volunteers, and it was easy to build a citizen science project on patriotism. It was really important that this university was open enough to start a course for master degrees students on citizen science, and this is different than the courses in Western Europe, because in Western Europe, at universities, the PhD students are taught. There are courses for PhD students who are becoming the future researchers, how to work with citizen science, how they can reach out volunteers, how they can work with the library, and so on. But in our case, we teach those who would work in the libraries would be our teachers of small towns or villages, those who work in museums in this region, how they can help, how they can assist the researchers of the university when the lecturer wants to have a citizen science project. It's also very important that this was the time when we could start a roadshow of citizen science, how we can develop citizen science, I would say. And we started it in 2023 at the National Library of Hungary with of course, with the Association of the Hungarian Librarians. And since that, we started a kind of roadshow, which is getting more and more popular. So what is the role of the association? The Association of the Hungarian Librarians is the biggest and greatest associations of librarians in Hungary. The members are the persons, not the libraries, and it means that it's easy to reach lots of people. There are more than 2,000 members of the association, but also in this association, libraries can be members. So we work with sections, different sections, like every county has a library, a section, and we visit. What we do, we visit county libraries in big towns when there is a university as well. So we make sure that we give presentations on citizen science for a public library, for a county library, and the university librarians at the same time. It's really important because we do believe that the public libraries and the university libraries, research libraries, must work together on citizen science projects, because it's easier for the public library to get the volunteers interested and get them involved, while the university library can easily bring a researcher. They are the ones who know which researcher deals with a given problem or issue. So it's really important how we organize these roadshows and the locations of these roadshows. Actually, we could really start to work on citizen science under the umbrella of the Association of the Hungarian Librarians since 2023, when there was a new president of the association, and there's a new executive board for the association as well. And it also meant that I became the vice president of the association, and it was really important me to bring citizen science into the work of association under the working group of preserving cultural heritage. So this is how we started the roadshow, how we start. The methodology of the roadshow is we want to make sure that it's not too long, and at the same time it's long enough. So it means that we visit the places, the county libraries, when the university librarians are also invited, for half a day. Usually it's a morning session. I believe, morning is always easier to have trainings than the afternoons. And the first part of the morning, we present the theory of citizen science and what it is exactly, because lots of Hungarian librarians still do not know what citizen science is. It's not spread out like it is in France or in Denmark or in Switzerland. So we have to talk about it a lot. We have to train the librarians not to be afraid of it, because sometimes when they hear the citizen science expression, they think that they would have, of course, just a new role, there's a new problem or anything or something like that. So we really try to explain why it is good for them, for the libraries, why it is good, how we can help the researcher, and why it is. We believe that it is also good for the volunteers. Of course, there are a few, very few examples in Hungary when a library is involved in a citizen science project. We let the other libraries know about these projects. They can also join if they want. And we also bring Hungarian examples when libraries are not involved, but how we could involve the libraries into these projects. And of course, we also let them know about the EU best practices. At the second half of this morning session, kind of training, we work it with the librarians, with those who came to this kind of presentation, and we try to find out together, what skills we need, the librarians we need, what we already have, and plus there are with some guidelines. We try to make them think about different citizen science projects. So it's a very interactive hour, the last hour of these trainings, when the participants can tell us, the presenters, what they think about it, how they could imagine a citizen science project, how they can make it real in their library. And this is our small group, only 6 of us who do the roadshow from time to time. It means that all of the presenters and those who we are involved in this project are from different kinds of library. I'm from a special library. It's in Hungary, it's different than in Western Europe, but we are a special library. It's more like a research library. We are not belonging to a university, but we are a kind of national institution in Hungary. So our library, the Library and Information Center of the Hungarian Academy of Library, is involved, and one of my colleagues is also part of our team. There is a university librarian from the Hungarian Agriculture University, and she has been involved, and she is working actively in a citizen science project when the library, the university library, a university lecturer, researcher, and the students are involved. So it's really important that we can show the libraries a real case, and we bring the librarian there who has done a citizen science project. And of course, there is a public library is always also involved. This is the Metropolitan Library, the biggest library of Hungary. This is the library network in the capital. So with this team, we would like to show other libraries that working together with other types of librarians, like public librarians and university librarians, it is not impossible. It is a very fruitful and a very nice cooperation can be. It's just we have to, discuss and agree which librarian or what part of the project belongs to the university library, and what issues and duties belong to the public library. And choosing the locations, we have chosen first the 5 biggest universities of Hungary. This means that the 5 big towns of Hungary. So we started from kind of top, and from the top we go down to smaller places. But the Szeged University Library is the biggest university library, and it's a very nice town, southern Hungary. We visit them, and we bring real projects to the librarians, and we show them how to work, how to start a citizen science project. And after we visit at the first time, and our little team shows them or try to teach them how to start a citizen science project. And they have a person who is responsible for the project. We go back in 3 months and discuss what they could achieve. We go back and we have another meeting with them and try to help them with the next steps. Sometimes it's really difficult to do the first steps, but what we realized during the roadshow, that the first step is the easiest one, when we decide that yes, we want a citizen science project, but then sometimes it's really difficult to motivate their colleagues, the other librarians. Sometimes it's really difficult to find a researcher who agrees the methodology of a citizen science project. And of course, they find out very easily that they have to keep motivating the volunteers, the interested people, and make them feedbacks. So during the roadshow, this is our slogan, what we took from Winnie the Pooh, that we cannot wait to do the duties and issues doing from someone else. We have to go out and we have to do ourselves what we really want to do. Thank you very much. I didn't look at the time, but I think we are still on time, and
Yes,
Neil has
sure.
the rest of the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dora. So as I said before, we will keep the question for the end. Do not hesitate to ask question in the chat or asking question later. So thank you very much. And now I'm going to give the mic to Nell. Sorry. Neil Coleman is the Citizen Science Engagement Officer at the University of Edinburgh, and I will let you the scene for your presentation. Thank you.
Let's hope it works. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Works.
Can you hear
And
me?
we can see you.
Oh, wonderful. Great. After the chaos. Thank you about that. Sorry for the tech issues. My laptop did not like the thing. So hello. So I'm coming to you from the University of Edinburgh. And we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, a very specific case study, is how we've been progressing in our area. So the fudgy middle, I'll explain what that means in a minute. I'm going to start with the context. I'm not going to introduce myself properly for a moment because I want to emphasize something I think should be quite apparent already from those 2 wonderful talks, is that we're all taking quite significantly different approaches to place university libraries in this space of citizen science. The other thing I should just caveat is I will often refer to participatory research rather than citizen science. We see them as the same thing. It's a terminological quirk because of the context we work in. So if you hear me say participatory research, I mean citizen science, and keep using the term citizen science. Whatever works, it's just semantics. So context. So University of Edinburgh for the UK is a huge institution. I know in other countries that it's not necessarily the largest, but it's very big for the UK. So 50,000 students, 6,500 of those are research students. We have, I lost count of how many researchers who are kind of at the university, but they're based in 3 colleges: the Science and Engineering, Arts, Humanities and Social Science, and Medicine and Veterinary Medicine. So these 3 colleges are semi-autonomous, and they have even 3 different locations in addition to the central campus. The arts within one college even has a college within the college. So it's a really large, diverse institution which is very research focused. It's not primarily a teaching institution. It's the 3rd largest landowner in the city of Edinburgh. It's one of the biggest employers. It is basically a city within a city. It has some institutional strategies that drive it. So the Curriculum Transformation Project is about getting students to undertake active learning. And then within that, there's this thing, experiential learning, that is saying, hey, we want our students to perhaps do things like citizen science. And 50,000 students, that's going to be quite an impact, a little bit scary. We're looking at research cultures. So this is another driving force within our institution, where the university is saying, hey, we want the institution to be doing better work, more respectful, more open science and open research-based work. And we have a community action plan about how the university and the local community integrate with one another. Within that, there's citizen science built in. So the university is really charging quite headlong in the direction of open research and participatory research or citizen science. So there's big momentum within our institution already towards it, but we're a big institution and we're ancient. So as you can imagine, change is not quick, it's incredibly slow. So there's momentum, but it needs a lot of momentum to get anywhere. The research profile is actually that we already have a huge amount of participatory research going on in the university. Specifically, the medical school, they do a lot of public and patient involvement, but surrounding that, they also do what we'd call citizen science and participatory research. I see PPI, or public and patient involvement, as another thing within the same umbrella of participatory research, but it's dealing with things which are very difficult and technical to manage and so forth. So often I leave them to the side. They treat them as a special entity, despite the methods being employed being very, very similar to citizen science as a whole. But even taking that chunk out, the research profile there is that there's a huge amount of participatory research going on. The social sciences here, it's been embedded here since the 60s. There's huge amounts of it going forward. There's tens and tens of quite large scale projects. And that doesn't sound like much, but if you think about how many projects that are funded with multiple researchers, that's actually quite a good chunk of the area of the university. Digital humanities, we have a great deal of that. Marissa Terrace, who ran the Bentham Transcription Project, is one of the researchers here. So that kind of thing is going on. And in education as well. So a lot of work in those areas. There's a skew towards high participation, low participant number projects. So not citizen science where it's like on the platform like Sci-Hub or Zooniverse, where you get thousands of people in to do very little work. These are 5 to 10 to 20 people who are lived experience and have lived expertise co-designing projects. And that is a lot more common. Obviously, it's a spectrum, but there's a bulge at the end of high participation. Digital humanities is a slight exception, where it's more in the crowdsourcing area, the low level on Muki Hackley's scale. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. There's a large amount of siloing and a postcode lottery here. You'll find that some people will have no idea what citizen science or participatory research is. If you go to the School of Science and Engineering, weirdly, despite it citizen science, you'd think of them, not really much going on. And you don't find much communication between these units. There is also a lot of support here, because obviously if you're doing citizen science, if you're doing participatory research, it's not all about the research, it's about the engagement skill sets. If you're a researcher, you want to enter this space, you're going to need a lot of help if you've never done it before. And so we have the research office that can help with impact and outreach. The Department of Sustainability and Social Responsibility, they support with civic engagement, working with communities. And at every school and college level, there is similar support ranging throughout. So what about the library, where I am? The library has a lot of strengths when we're talking about participatory research. We have a large building in the centre of the city. We have site libraries dotted all around the city and the colleges. We have academic support librarians with brilliant ties with all the colleges and schools. We have the heritage collections, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow as well in a different presentation, which is vast and contains artworks and statues and everything. And we have makerspace as well, which is open to all staff and students. Challenges within our library. This is all for you to hopefully just keep at the back of mind. You don't need to memorize it. We do have competing priorities. We're a library, right? And as everyone here will know, it doesn't matter what institution you are, participatory research is one piece of the puzzle. So we can't come in and say, change everything to make it easier for us. We have to think about how we integrate with the wider library. We don't have infrastructure in place for this because a lot of our work with participatory research obviously involves working with people who aren't staff or students. The library's been set up for them. So there isn't the infrastructure yet in place for that. And capacity, the inevitable issue. Everyone will be nodding. It's like, oh yeah, capacity. How much time and space do you have to do the work that needs to be done? Right, so who am I? With all of that, I've given you the context. I work at the University of Edinburgh Library. I work within the library research support team because within that team is the open research team. And that's a team that is across the university. It's not just library team. Weirdly, it's about changing research culture to open research everywhere. My name's Neil Coleman, and my job title is obnoxiously long, and I am trying to change it, but we added in the term participatory research unofficially just to keep everyone happy. So, what do we do? What is this participatory research work that the Library of the University of Edinburgh is doing? So I've had this little spectrum come up. So as part of the open research team, we have a kind of advocacy role. We're doing work to say, hey, we need to change policies and procedures at the institution, not just the library, across the university, that enable participatory research to take place. Because a lot of the policies and procedures don't work. So ethics approval process, for example, has been historically set up to support either you have a researcher or you have a participant. And the participant is defined as the person giving the data. You go, you give blood, you leave, you're a participant. Well, what if that participant is also a researcher? Where do they fit within the ethics review form? And so suddenly the very basic paperwork aspect isn't built around how you protect people who might be both participant and researcher, or who might be participant in the sense that they're kind of a data collector on their phones going out and getting data for a citizen science app. Where do they fit in? So we're working to support that and working with all those partners I mentioned across the university. The other end of the spectrum is figuring out how the library specifically can develop resources and support participatory research in practice. That's what I'm going to focus on today mostly. In the middle, we also have a range of activities that kind of fit between the two. They're library, but they're promoting participatory research. So in terms of advocacy, here's some examples. I'm going to whiz through them because I want to focus on what the library specifically is doing as a role within it. We've helped set up a research network across the university. We are working with partners across the university to build it into those university-wide strategies that we were talking about. And we've kind of collaborating and supporting research and engagement teams just to look at how we can say, hey, this is how you do it right. So kind of a lot of soft work here, but also some hard work like the research network. The middle ground, generalized support. So this is where we're going, hey, how can we get more people to do participatory research and how can we really promote the library's role? So we've got developing a research resource hub with the research office and a few projects, which contains a lot of information about how you can do participatory research and best practice, focusing specifically on the University of Edinburgh, what works here, but also general stuff. Community Reads is a project with the UK funding government agency, and they here is looking at how we can deal with exploitation and extractivism and how researchers can develop outputs that aren't just journal articles, but also benefit to the communities they work with. Discovery sessions are co-produced exhibitions, as you can see with the two members of the queer LGBTQ community on the left-hand side. They we'll talk about these tomorrow, I think. Citizen science showcases where we show off good practice, trainings, networking events, and so forth. Now, here's where we get to the fun stuff. This is what we've got to after a year and a half's experimentation. Just checking the time. Okay, we've got loads of time. I can slow down. This is what we are going to do going forward at the University of Edinburgh. So context-wise, I joined the University of Edinburgh last February. So I've been here a year and a half, getting on for 2 years now. The first year was exploring, learning, going for lots of, because we're British, going for cups of tea with researchers and going, what can we do for you? How can we work with you? What can we do? We came up with a lot of collaborative mechanisms, lots of ways we could work with researchers to support them. We have lots of researchers doing this work already. So our place was not to come in and say, we're going to start doing citizen science at the library. We didn't need to. There's already a lot of that work going on. Hugely resource intensive and would be valuable. But for us, it wouldn't have a big impact than if we became partners and worked with research projects that are already going. And if they came to us and wanted to partner in the future, great. So we needed to figure out a way of how we do sustained partnerships with researchers and how we could build that into the library ecosystem that respected the issues of capacity, of the fact that we didn't have the infrastructure, and meant for a sustained working environment where we could collaborate with researchers and have a consistent, ongoing and positive impact on participatory research at the university. So we decided, nope, we're not going to start doing projects ourselves, much as we really want to because it's fun. We're going to adopt a different model, and we're calling it the Partners in Participation model, PIPS. I don't know about you, but our organization insists on acronyms. So we decided on this one because it kind of sounds cute. That's basically the reason for the name. But this is what we went with. So our PIPs are a small group of projects. So these are meta projects, hubs, networks, and this is where the term fudgy middle comes in. If you think of a citizen science project, it could be a PhD student who says, I'm going to do a phone app and I'm going to work with this community, collect the data from this community about air pollution in the local area, and publish it, and I'm done. And we could support that. But there's already hundreds of those projects going on. We can't afford to support every single one. And the problem is with citizen science support at our university is that every single project is slightly different. So while we can come up with some forms of sustained support for them, we could not do that like in a way that guarantees that we'd support enough of them to make that worthwhile. Nor could we support every project individually. There's too many of them. We have done things like adapted our data services to make sure that they're aware and they can come to us if there are issues when a participatory research project goes to them and things like that. But as a rule, we felt it best to step away from those. So the fudgy middle are not that level of project, nor are they things like colleges and schools, which is like this big entities. There are these organizations in the middle. I'll give you a few examples of them in the moment so you can see what I mean. These are typically multi-year projects or networks. They typically have a huge amount of funding behind them and multiple members of staff. They're not permanent, and they do have a research objective, but they themselves are not all part of the organization in an official sense. They're not part of the University of Edinburgh. They're a project that's hosted by the university. They represent the most impactful and best kind of models of participatory research going on. They're not just picked out of a hat. They are the ones where we go, wow, this is amazing work. They're doing really well. They're well resourced, they're well connected, they're interdisciplinary, and that's really important given the issue of siloing I mentioned. They tend to change their objectives as they go through, unlike a research project, which will typically have a specific set of ethics, which will say, and a methodology and a data management plan, it's like, this is what we're going for. These kind of larger scale entities will typically have projects like that coming from them, but as an overall project will be a little bit more fluid and flexible, which means that we can work with them more easily. Right, so let's go with the first example, because I think you might be sitting there going, well, can you give me what is that? So the Binks Hub is based at the University of Edinburgh, founded in 2021. And so it's made of, like this is from their website, they use co-creative methodologies to look at arts-based research. So, for example, they work with a community centre to look at what that local community needs in terms of green spaces and blue spaces in the local area, to think about the mental health support for that local area. But rather than going and giving them a questionnaire, they go to the community centre and they go to the communities and say, let's work together and figure out a way of communicating your needs in a way that makes sense to you. And so they co-produce this from the start to the end. They don't have a specific project. What they are is a hub. They have multiple projects that stem from the Binks Hub. They have no physical presence. They have PhD researchers doing projects like this that they want to support. They have networks within the field of co-creative, participatory, arts-based research, however you want to describe it. So there's this network of researchers dotted across the university and beyond, and community centres, and they have these connections with the communities. They educate and present trainings and how you do this kind of research. They bring more people in and say, hey, if you want to introduce this into your methodology, this is how. And they fund various projects under the Binks umbrella. Example 2, Groundswell. So this is another large-scale project. This is, again, from their website, and I love how corporate it looks because it's not the vibe you get from them. But they're looking at health inequalities. They're looking at how you can do policy to research cycling. But important, they use co-productive methods. They work with communities, and they also use citizen science as a kind of a, in its classical sense, with, for example, apps to collect data. And they also work with the communities closely to steer where their research will go. This diagram on the right is from one of our citizen science showcases where we had an artist live draw it. Sammy Mason is one of the wonderful people I work with quite a lot. And it describes the Our Outdoors app, which they run, which is looking at people can download this app and go around the city of Edinburgh or anywhere in the world and say, this is good, this is bad, I like this green space, I don't like this space. So they do a whole host of projects within that. They're partnered with Liverpool and Belfast, who are also doing work, but we actually have the engagement hub, so we're the ones that do the citizen science. So what are these partnerships? They're kind of tailored to each of the PIPs. So with Our Outdoors, both of the two I've mentioned, I do a whole host of different work. We sometimes support their projects. We host their events. We work with them to give methodological advice or engagement advice. We see what they need and we adapt and flex as we go forward with it. The agreements we have with them aren't formalized. We don't have a contract because we don't want that. That's not the relationship we want. We want the library and them to kind of see each other as sustained partners in the sense that you would with a community organization. If it doesn't need to be formalized, we don't formalize it. If it does need to be formalized, we formalize it. So there might be, for example, a specific project we put a co-funded bid in. Then we might need to formalize where the funding goes. But otherwise, you might want to think about it in terms of a participatory research agreement that you have with a community centre, where you say, hey, we expect you to do this and we ask you to do this in return. Exactly this. Sorry, I forgot this slide existed. But yeah, so we specify the nature of the relationship. So who the main points of contact are. In this instance, me, Sammy, and the directors of Groundswell. We clarify how we'll work together. So we say, hey, we're going to have regular meetings. We're going to support you on these projects, and we'll be very open and honest about our respective capacities. Fixed points of exchange. We're going to say to them in January, we want your branding on our website, and we want you to put ours on yours. Very simple point, but it really cements the library's location within this. And we identify priority themes. So with the Binks Hub, we're looking in the next year to look at community archiving and looking at impact. So specifically policy impact and participatory policy and how research translates to that. So throughout the next year, we're going to be working on those topics with them. Our Outdoors for Groundswell is one of the big issues. They really want to promote it and get users in. So we're going to do what we can to support with that. How did we get here? So we've worked with these projects throughout, like these have been our partners throughout the past year. So we've worked with them recruiting activities where we've gone out and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Events, the hosting and facilitating of research activities. So we've had, for example, a workshop for Groundswell in the library where people came in and looked at some of the heritage collections. We've also been partnering with them on some of the advocacy stuff. So Community Reads, which you'll see on the right, is a front cover of the community read we produced with the Ripple project, who work with the Binks Hub. And so we co-produced this, we published it, we helped author it, and we're making sure that it gets to the people that need to hear it. So if you want to read that, I can send you a link in the chat. They've also been helping us with the research resource and helping us work on that. So this is what we're kind of getting back and forth with it. Why we adopted this model, I kind of made it clear to begin with that a lot of it was about how we balance that capacity, but it really does maximize impact. If you support the Binks Hub, you support every project that they support. But more than that, it also is part of culture change towards more participatory research. So if we support them by shifting infrastructure to support them, we also actually support every other project. These are kind of paradigmatic case studies. Partnership ensures we're not just a service. It ensures that people don't see us as we want to take this from you. And it means that we can learn from them and we can work with them to understand how the library can do better in this space. It anchors what we're doing. There is a risk that while it's great that they've hired in someone in my role to do this, if this depends too much on that person, if that person wins the lottery and flees to live in a forest like a hermit, I'm not saying I'm planning on it, I don't play the lottery, but if I did, then the whole thing might collapse. We can't base it on one person and one person's work. Having these partnerships means that the library is committed to sustained and ongoing work in this area, and also clarifies what the library will be doing in a very easy to understand way. Capacity and resourcing. I think I've made that abundantly clear that it really helps with this. What are we going to do next? Well, firstly, we'll find out if it works. Like I said, we're experimenting with it, but in reality, it's actually worked over the last year. We just haven't kind of labeled it as this is what we're doing. So it's implicitly proven its power. It's whether it will work into a kind of sustained fashion and will achieve what we want to achieve. So sustainability, anchoring, and so forth. We want to now stabilize it. So we've got two partners who are explicitly secured, Binks and Groundswell. We have ideal numbers 5 to 8. We have 3 more who are kind of very keen to partner up, but we just need to go through that process of establishing what it is. And we're actually now, because we've got to this stage of re-establishing everything, it's time for us to reset. So if you go on our website, none of this is there. And I'm sorry for that. And that's because it's just me. January is the time we're going to reset all of this and make it very clear that the PIPS model is at the heart and make it clear about what we actually do here. So you've kind of caught us at a transition period, and this is where we've reached. And that's where I'll end, and I can then see the chat and your faces, hopefully. There we go.
So thank you very much. Thank you, and thanks to both of you. We are going to take some questions now. So I see that there was some in the chat, and I'll go back in the first. I think there was first a question for my part about the CSR. So corporate social responsibility and citizen science. Sorry, I don't remember who asked that. It was far away in the chat. So that's very different. The first reason is that citizen science is about producing science. It's not about only participation. It's participation for producing knowledge. It's not about decision making in the organization of a corporation, for example. It's not with your colleagues. It's open to a large amount of people. But I have to say that, of course, a lot of the questions that are held with, or addressed by citizen science projects are related to the question of social responsibility. And of course, there is a strong relation between how we want to address the world and the facts to decide to build this answer with citizens. So yes, there is citizen science is is very political at this point and very related to the question of responsibilities, individual and collective responsibility. But citizen science is about producing science. It means that knowledge, and is related to also building with citizens the questions we want to address as scientific, or building the way to address these questions, so the methodology, to rethink the methodology, or to also finding the data that we can reach as citizens. So it's depending the project, the participation of citizens is from A to Z, or just at the data collection at the K part, we can say. But it's always about producing knowledge. So scientific knowledge can be academic or non-academic, can be with art, for example, or as well, but it's about producing knowledge and in science. That's very important difference. And someone answered you about retribution, and I have to say that in some citizen science projects, there is some retribution of the citizen scientists. Some of them are paid, some of them are have some gifts, for example. Some of them have some benefits that are immaterial, like having access to knowledge, or having gain some capacities, okay? And some colleagues give some certification or badge, like open badges, etc. So there is different way to mark the benefit that people have won with participating. But know that sometimes some people are paid, and it's really depending of the kind of project. But for example, I have colleagues working on the sex workers in a country in Africa, and they are working on HIV in the sex workers, and it's very difficult to be in contact with the person. So to be able to be in contact with the person, the concerned person, they paid some relay that are like a coordinator of the project, and who are also a sex worker. And that's very important sometimes to have this kind of relation. So question of retribution is very complex. So that was the first question that was held. I hope I answered correctly about your question. And then I've seen that there was a question for Dora. And Dora, the question was, have you started an infrastructure for information exchange among the university and public libraries?
Thank you. Yes, it depends what we mean that infrastructure for information. In Hungary, the libraries are working as a network. So there's a kind of information channel where public libraries and university libraries can share information. But our main aim when we visit these towns, that locally the public library and the university library should work together on, for example, on a citizen science project locally together. So there are not many joint projects for public libraries and university libraries in our country. But there are information channels where we can share information, and the association is a kind of information channel as well. We have, open days and different conferences. We have a newsletter, a blog where we can share information. But we mainly concentrate with the citizen science projects on locally to make them find a local citizen science project, because this is how we can make people more interested and get involved if there is a local value in the project.
Thank you very much.
Rafael, I would like to ask Neil, because there are two comments on the best strategy to approach two researchers. and it's very similar here in Latin America. It's about if it is a good strategy to spark the interest of researchers based on the perceived needs of the surrounding populations. And Desarrollo also comments about to develop a joint work in solving concern and questions that guarantees the participation and committed development. So when you are close to community and try to solve problems, you could make some interest and close to the researchers. What is your opinion, Neil?
Not sure I fully grasp the question, so apologies. Interrupt me if I go off on a tangent and just say,
I mean, if you start with trying to solve a problem of the community, you can to be closer to the researcher, and it's a good point of starting like a strategy to make contact with researchers and community.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a nice multifaceted topic, and I think the answer is yes. I think that can be a really effective and powerful strategy. I think the concern I would have with it, so for example, from our end, is we already have a huge amount of people doing that. So that's why we didn't kind of go to the communities first and talk to them and work with that. The second thing, and that includes the researchers already have topics. One of the issues we have at the university is that there are some high schools, for example, that are geographically nearer the university and have about 50,000 researchers with battering rams at their doors. 200 meters further down the road is a school because it's further away and gets no contact with the university. And so if we were going to go out there, it's incredibly complex for us to figure out who and which community to talk to, because there's these complex issues as to what should we be going and where should we be going. The researchers and the community teams here know best. The second thing that needs to be kept in mind is not only which community you talk to, but also the amount of work. If you want to, like, I think science shops are really popular in Europe, and I think they're an excellent model for doing this kind of thing. But if you're going out there looking to co-produce with a community group, that's a huge amount of work. And we have safeguarding concerns and ethical issues that pop up all the time relating to these things. Again, this is why we as the library are very tentative about leaning too far into this, because we're not equipped. We don't have the infrastructure to do that safely and do that in a respectful way that won't extract things from the community. Even if we go in with the best intent to ask them, what do you need? We can't guarantee that we can give them what they need. And again, that's why we adopted the PIPS model. Multi-million-pound project has that capacity. We can just support them with that. But I think if you have the capacity, if you have the support, and if you have the knowledge of where to go, working with the communities, finding out what they want is a brilliant strategy. Science shop, love it, but not always and not every time. Does that kind of address the question?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
There was another question for you, Nell. The question was, how do you see and integrate the work that you are doing with the Wikimedian in residence that you have in your library, and how you integrate Wikimedia related activities in citizen science, maybe?
Am I still here? Because my screen's locked up.
Yes, you are
Good.
here.
Okay, well, I can't. I'll just go with that. The answer is, I love Ewan. Really talented, does amazing work. We don't work with him at all, simply because we don't have the time. Like I can think of so many ways that we could work with him and work with the Wikimedian team and the open education team here. not just as part of citizen science, but overall. But we don't, simply because we don't have the capacity. And so our focus has to be on the researchers and the research. That, I think, we kind of leave them to it because they're so good at what they do. They don't really need our help. And I think if we tried to work with them, we would just slow them down, the open education team. In the future, I think there is going to be space for collaboration. There's a lot of talk about how we train our citizen scientists or our participants, our active participants. For example, how do they know, like we want them to help interpret data, for example. We want them to understand how to do data management properly, because then they can get more involved in the research and do better citizen science. And at that point, I think we're going to start working with that team a lot more closely, because we can start developing educational resources with them. We haven't got to that stage yet, but that is definitely something that I know a lot of people are really looking at, but we're not quite there yet. I think that would probably be the best point of overlap and intersection that I could see.
Maybe I can ask something about that, because we had Wikimedian in residence, and we asked him to work with us on one of the citizen science a project that I was leading as researchers, because I'm a researcher, and the project was about some bugs on the trees that appears in Bordeaux that wasn't there before. It's a new thing with the climate change. We have new bugs also, and we had a presentation about this project, and the Wikimedian in residence proposed people that came to the workshop to try to find information about this bug, because it's a pretty new thing for us. So trying to find information and then adding information on the Wikimedia page that was pretty empty. So that was a way to create common knowledge with the Wikimedian in residency.
That's beautiful. I love that, and I'm going to steal that. Thank you.
And it was pretty easy to do, you know, pretty easy to organize.
I have another question for any of you. What kind of project have you had regarding Agenda 2030 or Agenda 2030, and how to connect the community with those big challenges of the world, linking, of course, with citizen science project? I don't know, Dora, or
I can answer just for my part, but I can say that I can you hear me? I think that I think my computer is going to shut down. I don't have any charge, but I will find a way. I think my I have not done a direct link, you know, between citizen science and one or many of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. But in fact, all of my projects are related to ecological transition. So, and I know pretty well the Agenda 2023. So I know, and I know how to use this when I want to have some money, some funds for my project, you know, because I think that this agenda, I'm sorry, I'm going to walk, so we can continue to discuss, and I'll charge my phone, my computer. So I think that I know how to say to the colleagues, to the people who fund, the funders, my research is related to this SDG or this SDG, all right? And also, as I said, I think that a lot of the projects in citizen science are related to the concern of the people, and the concern of the people today are related to ecology, poverty, education, and things like that. So it's pretty easy to make links, direct links, and to say this project will have a social impact or ecological impact. And last year we made this study about social impact of projects, and I just presented the relation to the library, but we see that it's a very strong component of the research projects. And I think that with the presentation of Nell, we have seen that too. Of course, the researchers hubs you presented wants to change the life of the people, so it's pretty easy to relate it to link that to some SDGs.
Thank you. Dora or Neil, do you want to comment?
You ask me, I would say that it. I'm a librarian. So I have always looked at the citizen science projects from the library point of view. I don't think that the library has to say what the topic should be of a citizen science project. It's mainly the researchers. Of course, locally, a community can have a wish. I've seen with the archaeological citizen science projects when the local people said that we know that there was a kind of cemetery here during the Middle Ages where we would like to work with you as a citizen science archaeological project, and we are interested in what we have there, and then they work together. So the local community can have a wish, on citizen science projects and find the researcher to that, but we libraries cannot say what the project should deal with. We have to assist the projects. We have to help. We help them, but it's not up to us what the topics would be. So probably the life would bring these things as researchers get money first of all for a kind of research. So probably a researcher is interested in one topic a lot, or he gets some fund, and because of the fund he has to fulfill. So it's not this is why I cannot predict what would happen in 2030. What I would like to predict is that libraries are more and more involved in Central Eastern Europe as well in citizen science project, which means that the citizens realize that the citizen science project is kind of their project as well. So the citizen science projects also help their life, it's not just for the researcher or the goodwill of the researcher.
I think I'll come in and echo that to a point. So for example, with our partners, I'm on the advisory panel for one of them. And so I have a say in how it's run and some of the projects to some extent, but I am very careful not to overstep and say, hey, I think you should be researching this thing, it's cool. Partly, even if I do feel like it fits with the 2030 agenda or so forth, like that's for them to ultimately decide. But what we do have influence over is best practice, and a lot of the best practice that comes in does align with a lot of the SDGs. Like it's about how you have people's voices, about whose community's voices are heard, how they're heard, the way it comes in. We sometimes have people coming to us for methodological advice. We also promote participatory research and so forth. So I think the role there is that we have an indirect impact. And a lot of that is like, I do look to the objectives to kind of steer slightly. Often though through the lens of open research, so like the UNESCO open research model and so forth. And so it's more of an indirect working towards these objectives, and often in the advocacy side more than the practical side. But I think there is some degree of effort going in there. But yeah, I agree with Dora, like ultimately when it comes to the research that's done, we're partners, we're not and our role in that partnership is not to steer it, but in reality, the research is going that direction. Every single research project we're working with is healthcare, community-based. And I think it's just natural, because if you're doing citizen science, this is where it begins. It's the people who care about all of these wonderful objectives that everyone has shared behind them. So I feel like if that weren't the case, I might give you a different answer and be a bit more like, well, we need to start nudging them. But Yeah, but yeah, like I think I just kind of echo that mostly, but highlight we do have a role and we can have an impact, but in the background.
And I agree with what you say, the both of you, but I'm a researcher, so of course it's the different position, but I think that's very useful for us because I know very well the Agenda 2013, but I know that a lot of my colleague researchers doesn't know about it. And I think that librarians know it because we have this, in libraries, we have this habitude, these aims to create strategy. And it's not so obvious for some researchers. So I think that sometimes sharing good, a language, common language like SDGs can be useful for researchers. But just as you say, not saying you should say that, do that, but just say, hey, do you know these tools maybe could be useful for you to say that you want to reach out this objective or this objective with this language, because you don't have to say SDG 1 to say I want to work on poverty, but sometimes saying also SDG 1 can be useful for the strategy and for funds. It's just a question of politics.
Yeah, and also, well, it's an opportunity to teach people also, the community, and the library has a role on that.
Exactly.
So, well, we will now have we have to finish this session because we have a break now, and please, Lynn.
Yes, we have a break now, and we will start promptly at 11. Santiago time, 3 p.m. European time. And remember to connect to the other WebEx link for the next session. And thank you so much to...
And sorry, Lynn, but I think that Nell and I, maybe Dora, I don't know, are coming back sooner to answer some question if we don't have time now to answer questions. And it's at 4:13 in France, in Europe, that's it?
Yes, that's correct. After the next session, we will have the wrap up for the day with you and with Wouter, the head of the library here, where you can answer any questions that are coming up or elaborate on more on the topics.
Okay, so see you very, very soon.
Many thanks to all of you. And well, I will talk a little bit in Spanish. Ahora tomaremos una pausa corta, nos reuniremos a las 11 de Santiago, a las 11 horas de Santiago de Chile y a las 3 p.m. en Europa. Recuerden unirse a la próxima sesión utilizando el enlace de registro web que está en nuestra página web y que vamos a poner en el chat. Entonces nos vemos en la próxima sesión en 15 minutos más, en 10. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you to you.